there, I'm Erin Devine from Top Shelf DIY, and today I'm going to talk about my most beloved topic on YouTube here. Crown molding. Already done a tutorial on outside corners. This one is specifically going to be about inside corners. I've had a couple of requests for this video, so let's get to it. So the trick here is one thing, and one thing alone. The spring angle. What this little angle is that the crown must sit at when it's installed, as well as what angle it's sitting at when you're cutting it on your miter saw. Very important, because if you either install it at the wrong angle or cut it at the wrong angle, you're going to have problems. And if you don't know the angle that you're putting the crown in, you know, your inside corner, your outside corner, you're going to have problems there too. The first step is to determine your spring angle. A, you can look on the little sticker in the aisle when you purchase it from your big box store. B, you can actually cut off a sliver and measure the angle in your little framing square. And I'm going to show you how to do that. C, you can take your two corner pieces together, put that in your corner, and at the point where they align perfectly, if they're both cut at the correct miter, is going to tell you what the projection is going to be on the ceiling and the run on the wall. That's a little more trial and error. So I prefer to take a proactive stance, which would be option B. So let's get into showing you how I measure for the spring angle once I already have my crown molding at home. Okay, so with your sliver of crown molding in hand, you're going to line this up such that the bottom plate is flush with your square, and the top plate, you want it flush here and a little bit of a gap on this outermost edge. They actually make the crown that way to give you some room in case the ceiling isn't perfectly flat, which, let's be honest, it never is. Okay, so there's our markings. We are at 3 for the run and 3.5 for the projection. So let's mark that. 3.5 and 3. Okay, what I also went ahead and did was once I lined this up, I traced it. Okay, this we know is a 90-degree angle. This I measured with a little handy-dandy protractor. Came out to 52 degrees, which made this angle 38 degrees to give us 90. And this is our spring angle, as you recall. So our spring angle is 52, and spring angles are usually either 38, 45, or 52. So sure enough, we got ourselves a 52-degree angle. But now we know when this is installed, it's always going to project 3.5 inches on the ceiling from the wall and down 3 inches. This is a piece, it's a coping jig. I literally just made it out of some scrap wood I had lying around. The key here is I can clamp this to my workbench, and this gap right here is 3 inches. So when I put this piece in here and I'm coping it, it's always going to be at the correct spring angle. And since I'm coping it while it's upright perfectly, you're going to want this gap to always be 3 inches. Now the opposite is true for the jig I'm going to make for the miter saw, because what I do is I actually cut in the nested position, which means that I'm going to be flipping my crown upside down every time. So that means this jig here will have to be the distance of the ceiling projection. So here's what I did. My ceiling projection always has to be 3.5. So I stick a little block here that's that exact width. Take another piece of scrap wood. Don't come at me for using this really nice pre-primed MDF. It's all I've got. I'm going to secure the ends down, remove this block, and then every time I go to cut upside down in the nested position, it's going to be at the correct angle.
So you can totally sketch this out just freehand on paper, but since I have SketchUp and I know how to use it, this is how I mapped out my son's bedroom. I calculated the dimensions of the room using a digital measuring tape, and I knew after this that I would need 7 inside corners, 3 outside corners, and now I can go ahead and measure those corners with a protractor just to verify that they're all going to be 45 degrees. So for this room, I have 10 pieces of crown molding to cut, and I typically work my way around the room clockwise, and I cope on the left so that when I flip it over, I'm actually coping on the right side because I'm right-handed.
Okay, we are in my son's bedroom. I have already mapped out the space as you saw, so I know exactly what the dimensions are going to be, how much material I need to order, probably at about 10, 15, 20% waste, depending on how comfortable you are, just to make sure you have enough and you don't have to make a trip back for one piece. Been there, done that. So, I'm going to start in this corner. I actually had 2 sample pieces up that I took photos of before and I took them down, so you'll see there's a little bit of residual caulk there. So I'm going to start in this corner. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a starter block up here that goes all the way in the corner flush, and I'm just going to add 1 nail just to hold it in place. And that way, once I get all the way around the room and to the end, I can just slide that out, put the last piece in. I'm not going to nail this end all the way in. I'll leave it kind of loose. That way I can maneuver it a little bit, get that last piece in, take it out, and secure it the rest of the way. But you always measure from where the bottom of where your crown hits. So this piece is going to have to be 7 7/8, so I'll probably cut it to around 8 1/4. Another thing I always do is take my little protractor, especially on a cornice box like this where, you know, I'm not perfect. It may not be perfectly 90 degrees. So, and it is. It's 90 degrees. So that's good. Yeah, so that's 90 degrees. So we are in good shape. So I've got this piece here. And this is the right orientation. This is the bottom profile. This is the top. Okay, I know I need to cut and cope the left side of this piece. And I know it's going to be an inside corner, which means the bottom is going to be longer than the top. Now if it was an outside corner, the top is longer than the bottom. So I know this is the angle at which I need to cut. At a 45 degree angle, of course. Flip it upside down, put it in my jig, and I know when I'm cutting it this way at a 45 degree angle, it's following the line of my cut that I've already marked. Before I move on to coping, I want to let you know there are 3, yes, 3 that I know of, ways that you can cope. There is the manual coping method with a coping saw. You can also use an angle grinder with a flat disc. It makes a lot of dust, but it works super effectively and creates a lot less muscle fatigue. And then the last option, which I have not really personally used, I don't know, I think it's a little bit harder than the other 2, is the Collins coping foot, which is an attachment for any standard jigsaw. All right, here's method number 1. So and I typically start at this pointy end. Just start cutting down and away. I like to get a little bit closer. But you gotta be careful because that tip is sensitive. So as you can see, I did cut away a little bit more. I have a second. Here was my first coping saw. My second one is a little bit sharper. You definitely want a nice sharp saw for this. And what you can do is you take a file, 36 grit, 32 grit sanding wedge. Now that I've got my one side coped, I can measure from the bottom of the piece to 18 1/4. My measurement was 18 inches exact, but I want to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, so I'm going to do 18 1/4, do a test fit, see how it fits. If it's a little long, kind of creep in on the cut, and then I can do my next piece, which will be an inside corner on the left again, and an outside corner on the right. Let's look at how this looks when it comes together. And look at that. You know what I did? You know what I need to do? You see where the caulk lines are. It's actually different. Those are not the actual lines. Those were off as far as where the projection and the run were supposed to go. So I had to remark my lines and we got ourselves a pretty darn good fit for a coped corner, if I do say so myself. Normally I would take and put a bead of liquid nails along this top part where it's touching the ceiling and this bottom strip where it's touching the wall. But because I am not putting these up here permanently, it's more or less for the purposes of this video, I am just going to use 2-inch brad nails and my Ryobi Airstrike 18 gauge brad nailer. Tune up is I need a piece right here that fits in this inside corner and this outside corner. As you can see, I have this cut on the outside and I've got a scrap piece with the other piece of the outside corner. That way I know that the length is correct. So now I can secure these in, and this whole board that goes across the front should be easy as pie. Oh, this is when I don't like working alone. Oh, in tight spaces. All right, there we go. That's gonna be one nice little corner there. There you have it. You're just gonna keep doing that all the way around until you get around the whole room. Alright guys, that's it for this tutorial. If you liked this and found us helpful, please hit like and subscribe. Any questions, put them in the comment box below. And in the meantime, happy building!